Hi, how are we doing, everyone? Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Why don't we kick off? Let's just see where everyone's from. So just post a quick hi, post your job title and which city or rural area you might be based in. It's always interesting to see who joins these sessions. We will kick off in 1 minute properly. Hi, Nafis, how are you? Thank you for joining. Taking time out of your busy Friday. I'm sure you have better things to do. Tandy, recognise your name. Nice to see you. Suzanne, nice to see you as well. Out in Dublin, I was there a couple of weeks ago. Sunny for 3 days straight, so did not fit the stereotype. Sylvia, Lisbon, awesome. Justine, obviously recognise you. Saw you this morning for our workshop. Tanya, Ed, nice to meet you. Oxford Uni Press, interesting. Cool company. Andrei from Lisbon as well. Nice to see you. Seja bem-vindo. Rohit out in Florida. Kieran, Julia and Pisa. Excellent. Good. Always interesting. Sami out in Mumbai, another very interesting city. I had a very fun weekend there about 10 years ago for an entrepreneurs conference. Alejandro, nice to meet you. Avalok H3 Innovation Lab. Awesome. Always interesting to get those coming from Innovation Labs joining. Let's jump in. So today I'm on holiday in an hour. So rather than doing boring presentations, I thought we would just go straight in with some theory, start putting it into practice. We've got two really nice case studies lined up. Don't worry, that doesn't mean I've prepped, put the work in. I thought I'd do something a bit more fun today. And it's Friday. I'm sure you don't want to sit through a boring product talk or PowerPoint presentation. So let's jump in. What are we going to do today? Somebody confirm they can actually see my screen before I start speaking. Someone just add in the comments. Yeah, okay, excellent. Awesome. Always worth checking. What are we going to do today? I'll zoom out. I'm also going to share this Miro board, but I'd like you just to follow along actually for the start, just so you don't go off and explore. Fine to do so, but just to keep some focus. So start with a very brief introduction to product strategy. We are then going to go through a case study. So how do we think about product strategy in practice? Going to get you to go through that step by step. And then we're going to get you to actually craft your own product strategy based on a problem that I'm going to provide for you, based on a challenge that I've presented. If at the end anyone wants to take next step with this, really take, obviously we can't cover everything in an hour. If you really want to level up or fast track your product career, learn not just how to craft product strategy, but also communicate and validate product strategy effectively, then feel free to click this button. We've got a cohort launching in January for Prod MBA, and we have about 7 places left there. So feel free to check that out at the end. But let's jump in. So what is product strategy? It's a definition from Roman Pichler from Strategize Product Strategy and Product Roadmap Practices for the Digital Age. Quote, the product strategy describes how the long-term goal is attained. It includes the product's value proposition, market, key features, and business goals. A bit high level. I really prefer, in fact, Melissa Perry's definition. We essentially talk about, product strategy is not a plan. Product strategy is about as much what we don't focus on as what we do focus on. So it's always easy to know when we have a product strategy because it should be clear. If someone comes along with a feature idea, it should be obvious that yes, that fits with our product strategy, or no, it doesn't. Easy example, Superhuman, the email application. Load that up just so you see it. Inklix.com. So the fastest email experience ever made. Therefore, for Superhuman's product team, someone comes along and say like, hey, why don't we build a really cool calendar app? Does it help us make the fastest email experience ever made? If so, great, let's think about it. If not, whatever, not our problem to solve. Okay, we're not interested. It's a really simple example there. Now, why is product strategy, you would have seen this become a topic all over LinkedIn, something that's becoming more and more important. Now, it's always been important, but particularly the last 10 years, product strategy has become even more important. Why is that? Because product strategy at its core is a reflection of our value proposition, particularly our unique value proposition, i.e. what is it that we can provide that solves a problem, provides value, but we can do it in a unique way so people actually bother to sign up, to try out our product and ultimately pay for it. Now, over the last 10 years, particularly since the launch of, go back to Lean Startup 2008, and that whole, the MVP movement, we were very focused on viability risk, i.e., can we actually build the thing? Can we deliver on what we want to build? Nowadays, we have 10 times more websites and therefore 10 times more products out there. That was 2008, 2018, so we've got even more nowadays. What does that mean? It means that it's even harder, it's even more competitive because there's more products, and therefore it's harder to find unique value in a market. Okay, it's harder to find unique value in the market. So we have to be really good at understanding value risk, and that all comes back to our defining our product strategy and then validating our product strategy. So, hey, is this actually unique market? Are you actually interested in it? And then, driving our roadmap towards delivering on that product strategy. And that's where we start thinking about viability risk. We start thinking about things like usability risk, but never forget that value risk is ultimately our biggest risk when it comes to product and product management. So again, product strategy describes how the long-term goal is attained. Think of it as the chess moves moving towards our long-term vision. Think of it as not a plan, but a focus on specific points of value, and we just forget the rest of it, quite simply. So how do we actually craft product strategy? I've done other workshops on something called the MVO, the minimal viable offer, where we come out with a really nice, concise product strategy statement. What I wanted to do today, though, is actually just get you to really think about the ingredients that go into a good product strategy, both in terms of, what's the problem we're solving? Secondly, what kind of unique value can we offer? And thirdly, okay, well, how do we defend that over the long term as well? Great if we launch a product, we get traction, but what stops a competitor coming in? We see that, Microsoft, for example, stepping into the workspace is knocking Slack out of the market. Slack have been very dominant. So even if we get, Slack, great, pat on the back, we're doing really well. If we don't succeed long term, then it's all in vain, essentially. So let's jump into this. I'm not going to share the Miro board yet because I don't want anyone having a little sneak peek. What I'd like you to do, I'm going to ask some questions and just get you to post your answers on the chat. In the second exercise where you're crafting your own product strategy, I'm going to invite some people onto the stage so we can have a little bit of a discussion about, why you came up with a certain answer, what the logic is, etc. So be as interactive as possible. So what I'd like you to do is I'm going to share this link on the chat. I can't pin links annoyingly, so I will just have to keep reposting it a few times. But what I'd like you to do is we're using a tool called Wayback Machine. It's a really cool tool to use where we can look back at a website at any point of time. So today we're going to look at Miro, which used to be called Real-Time Board, and we're looking back at November 2013. Why? Because product strategy changes over time. So I just want to look at Miro back then at that stage. What was the product strategy there? This is a great tool to use, though, outside of this session, just to see how positioning changes with many products and companies over time. And just to remember, they all start small, and success builds from there. So you can go to web.archive.org and just search any URL there. So the first challenge, and I'm just going to give set a 2-minute timer in Miro for this so you can all see it. I'd like you to just define, what do you think the problem is that Real-Time Board, formerly old version of Miro, Real-Time Board, what's the problem it solves? And why is that problem a problem? So 2-minute timer, go check out that web page, explore what they have on there. Again, we're not looking at Miro now, specifically Miro back in the day. What's the problem you think they're solving, and why do you think that is a problem? Browse through that single page, see what kind of ideas you get from that single page here. Just write on a piece of paper, notes on your laptop. I'll repeat the question. So based on what you can see from this landing page, I've shared the link. What's the problem that they're solving? And why is that problem a problem? Try and go down a level. What problem is real-time board solving that product? Good. Now feel free to start posting your answers. My assistant has just posted an example. So what's the problem? And then why do you think that problem is a problem? Okay, let's pull up an example. So we've got Tanya says the problem they're solving is that teams can't work on projects together effectively enough when remote. Problem beyond the problem is that teams are lacking tools to collaborate and deliver on projects. So there's two things we need to separate there, and I'm going to come back to that shortly. Let's have a look at Ruben's answer. So what's the on the surface problem? It's not having a virtual whiteboard. We go, well, okay, well, why is that a problem? Why do we need a virtual whiteboard? Because teamwork is, teamwork around some sort of visualization is more effective, i.e., we want to improve how we collaborate as a team, right? So it's about effective collaboration. It's not just about whiteboarding, for example. Now, why is that really important in relation to product strategy? And there's some other good answers. I just want to zoom in on this one. Why is that important? Because what it means is that if we understand the problem is not about whiteboarding, it's about effective team collaboration, then it opens the door for other kinds of solutions we might develop. And that, so our strategy is based around trying to improve team collaboration in some sort of unique way, but we're not closing our mind to just focusing on whiteboarding, because whiteboarding doesn't matter. People don't care about whiteboarding. They care about effective team collaboration, working more effectively together as a team. So this is the basis of product strategy. It means that rather than being closed in one solution, we can go in very different ways, and we can test different unique value propositions to try and solve that core problem. This, by the way, is the single biggest reason that products fail. So around 52% of products fail because they fail to address the core problem. So step one of product strategy is, are we actually solving the core problem there, which is team collaboration in this case? Okay, good. Again, some great examples. I'm not going to go through all of them, but do keep posting. Let's have a look at step two now. So, okay, we understand sorry, there's a really annoying little bee around my head. We know what the problem is that we're solving. I think he wants to join in the workshop. Step two is, okay, well, how do we do that in a unique way? It's not good enough to be like, hey, market, we're going to help you collaborate effectively, because they go, well, whatever. Email helps me do that. Miro competitor helps me do that. A real whiteboard helps me do that. Workshops help me do that. So we need to say, okay, well, how do we, now we understand the problem, like, what is our unique value? Okay, so let's just reveal what we've done so far. So we might say something like, yeah, it helps us share our work. We mentioned whiteboarding. Why is that a problem? Well, it's about collaboration. Right? Collaboration is essential for effective teamwork, particularly in a remote world. Okay. So next step two is, how could we solve this differently? And there are two really important parts of this question. We talk a lot about unique value, or I've talked a lot about unique value. So it has to be unique, but it has to also be valuable. We talk. Peter Thiel talks about this, like the intersection being valuable. For example, we could have, say we're launching a film, we could say, like, it's going to have zombies and sharks, and it's going to be awesome. But we might go, well, that's just it's just a film. It's different, but it's not a good storyline, for example. So we still need to make sure it's valuable, and that comes back to really nailing the problem, the crux of the problem. So we want to be unique, but still delivering value. So there are 4 different elements of solving this in a unique way, right, and starting to think strategically. So the first one I'd like you to do, I'm just going to set a 1-minute timer. So we've got this problem. How do we help teams collaborate more effectively? First is we can question convention. Elon Musk's a big proponent of this. So we some great companies are founded by looking at a problem and going, that just doesn't make sense how people are trying to solve it. It's not getting to the crux of the problem. Great example of this, probably not such a great example, but we focused on, for example, like we looked at the market and said it's mental that people just expect you to watch videos or read articles and get good at products are really hands-on, real world thing. So what did? We said, we're just going to focus on making everything hands-on and actionable when it comes to learning. Okay, that's our position, because convention doesn't make sense. A better example is really nice niche product called Amy.so. They're growing very, very quickly now. What do? Dennis, their founder, looked at the idea of planning your time and said, the calendar concept doesn't make sense, because what happens with a calendar? People book your time, but you're not prioritizing your own time, right? Your calendar fills up with random meetings. So why don't we try and merge this idea of the to-do list? So the things that you think are important with meetings in the calendar, so that you're actually prioritizing things on your to-do list. Okay, so you've got that merge of 2 ideas. What's he doing? He's questioning convention and saying, traditional calendar makes no sense for what it really should do, which is helping you plan your time, use your time effectively, not just, get other people to book out your time. So I've given you a couple of examples there. I'd like you to answer that question. How might we solve the problem of how does Miro, specifically looking at real-time board, back in 2013, again, the same link, I'll post that again for any late joiners. How did Miro question convention? How did it do things differently, solve that problem differently by questioning convention? I'm just going to set a 2-minute timer. Let's set a 1-minute timer, actually, in this case. When the timer goes, feel free to start posting your answers. Excellent. Feel free to start posting your answers. How did real-time board question convention and try and solve this problem differently? Any ideas? Don't worry if you didn't get it. Product strategy comes with practice. There's a few different ways to solve this. Excellent. So there's a few nice ideas here already. Let's have a look at, so Anna mentioned collaboration doesn't need to happen in person to be valuable. This is all the way back in 2013, remember. Obviously now that's sort of a normal thing, but back then the idea is crazy. Even looking at this, it's still physical whiteboards, because it was such a new concept that you could suddenly do this online, right? Look at this. There's a real photo of an office that you would not get that if we go on Miro nowadays. So we've got collaboration doesn't need to be online. Good. Shellin, interesting. So we've got 2 elements here. Convention was sort of, okay, you do this stuff physically in person. Challenger is obviously the virtual aspect. So again, that doesn't need to be in person, but also real time. So, hey, we can actually do the real time planning as well. So virtual real time, and obviously that's reflected in the name. And what's interesting, the name changes as the company evolves. So it broadens out just from real time collaboration to a few other things there. Yeah, broadly virtual versus physical. Just the fact that we're pushing whiteboarding as a concept versus like just having a conventional meeting is questioning convention in some ways. Good, excellent. Let's go on to the next one. Again, don't worry if you didn't get that. Product strategy really comes from repetition. Yeah, Sammy, again, great. Sync to async as well. That's part of this. The fact you can do this with virtual rather than in person, where we're all there putting sticky notes up at the same time, usually. Second, 1 minute timer again. How did Miro use different technology? In this case, different technology. You can mention specific features, specific points of value here. This is another way we can differentiate. So, if we look at Tesla as a good example, where they use 10 times better technology to build not just an electric car, but a whole sort of ecosystem with the app and data being passed from the car to constantly improve it. Or we could look at what we call a paradigm shift. So Loom.com is a great example. It will take me to my account of Loom, but anyway, if you don't know the company, Loom.com, where we do a paradigm shift away from communicating via email to communicating via video, quick video recordings, for example. So 1 minute timer. How did Miro use different technology? Just to repeat that question, how did Miro use different technology to differentiate themselves? Good. So we've got, the simple fact that it's online, firstly, but more specifically, Andre, I'll pull up your answer. Miro using the browser instead of old whiteboard apps. So rather than these standard, again, this is something that feels really normal now, like using these kind of tools in the browser. It wasn't that long ago you couldn't do this. When Figma did this, that was a big change in the design space, and that was, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, probably. So even less. So these kind of big paradigm shifts. That, hey, we can do it in the browser. We don't have all that installing, which is a bit of a pain, particularly when we think of collaboration. Okay, good. Rohit, yeah, directly from browser. No need to install the software. Hubin, again, very good. Everything's stored in the cloud as well. So not just stored in an app, but it's stored in the cloud, accessible from anyone and anywhere. Excellent. Good. Anything else on there? And yeah, it relates to that cloud idea. You can upload files and documents. It's all in this one space, like Google Drive, for example. Excellent. And yeah, Alejandro, great point. Over time, I'll pull up this answer, which is a very good one. Over time, oh, sorry, I accidentally answered it. Over time, they are doing things like, you're able to embed rich media like videos, and it's still working quite effectively. You've got history of changes as well. You don't have that with in-person, right? So that's a value add there immediately. Excellent. Yeah, Oladeji, so easy to learn and start using. I like that. Yeah, good. On that, let's go on to the third question. Again, 1 minute timer. Where do you think Miro focused on, or let's say real-time board? And actually, you know what I'm going to do in this? I'm going to change my mind. What I'd like to do now is look at Miro as it is now, because there's more competition in the market. And therefore, they've sort of broadened their offer a little bit. So just go to Miro.com to have a little browse again. And where do you think Miro's done one thing much better than others? So we're not talking about features, we're talking about specific points of value. So some examples of companies that have focused on one thing really effectively. Whereby.com simplicity. So you, rather than a big Zoom call with installs and all these annoying buttons, you share the link, click it, opens up, super simple. You're straight into a video call. Maybe Speed, Superhuman, focus on speed. Delight, Southwest Airlines, they really focus on delighting their customers, their point of differentiation. Really important in airlines because they all have sort of the same offering. So it's a very competitive market. Might leverage network, Instagram, like an insight about one feature they had, which is, you know, people like doing professional looking photos. So they launch filters that help them really take off at a time that it was very competitive in that sort of photo market. Good. So 1 minute timer again. How does Miro focus on one thing but do it much better? 1 point of value. Could be more than one as well if you think so, just as long as you can go through the logic. Again, be specific about value and not features. So Suzanne mentioned whiteboard. Okay, what do we mean by that? What do we mean by that? Think of an adjective maybe to help you. What's the key thing? There are many things you could list here. What's the really key thing that helps them differentiate? Good, just wait 20 seconds or so if anyone wants to post an answer. Good, and obviously this changes over time, which is why I mentioned it. Let's grab Alejandro's answer. So there are lots of different things you could focus on. You know, someone mentioned security. Yeah, that is a worry with some teams, but you know, I think ultimately the key thing is ease of use. At the moment, particularly, why is that? Because they broaden out just from that initial core market of product teams wishing to collaborate remotely to really trying to target everybody. You know, if we look at Miro now, it's where teams get work done generally, right? We're talking about teams generally, anytime, anywhere, very broad language. If we look at the types of companies, big companies, it's no longer the little startups on there, right? We've got huge corporates. And that's part of their new strategic play. Whereas if we go back and look at real-time board back in the day, you know, it's at the time where they didn't even have testimonials, but it's focused in TechCrunch, right? It's very startup, Silicon Valley kind of target audience, okay? So we see how it matures over time. And I think if we talk about Miro now, then yeah, I think we're talking about simplicity. I think flexibility being a key part and perhaps ties into ease of use as well, as Alejandro mentioned. So that was a great answer, touch up on those two things. Azra mentioned, yeah, saving time, absolutely. And actually that's something they could even play up more, right? Is you know, how are they measuring the effectiveness of the tool? Hard to, but you know, I don't know if they have surveys or they speak to customers and try and understand that in various ways. Yeah, we think of ease of use, you know, post-it notes, and that's sort of the core thing most people do, right? Super simple, everyone understands it, even down to the simple things like the colors that looks like a real pack of yellow post-it notes that we would buy from the shop. Good. Let's final part of product strategy want to think about, and the reason why I've actually separated this out, but when we think about what we call a dominant long-term strategy, so this is how do we win long-term? So again, think of Slack. Great, Slack's done really well, but it looks like it's now struggling and Microsoft is taking over. So how do we be dominant in the long term? Sometimes from day one, we can already think about ways that we might do that. So specifically network effects is a good example. Right, I'll go into that shortly. Second would be economies of scale. So think of Amazon or Walmart. Like over time, the more produce we're selling, the lower cost it is to buy that. We get better deals from our suppliers. Secondly, you know, if we're delivering loads of stuff from the US to Australia, that gets cheaper over time, for example. So we have economies of scale as another dominant long-term strategy. And also brand is one. It sounds a bit fluffy, but say a company like Cisco or Oracle, some of these really old school tech companies, they make billions because companies don't shift from them because it's reliable. You're not going to get fired if you're in a corporate company for using Cisco's products or SAP or whatever it might be. So you have this sort of strength of brand as well. So what I'd like you to think about now is how might Miro, or how is Miro dominating in the long term? Right, they're doing pretty well. How might they maintain dominance over time? So I'd like to think about things they might currently be doing, ideas that they could do, for example. So the first one I'd like you to look at is network effects. Now, what do we mean by network effects? Think of Facebook, think of Visa, think of Miro itself, in fact. Here's a great a little case study from Alipay. So what do we mean by network effects? It means that over time, we're creating more and more value for the product. So let's say, for example, Alipay promises initial strategy, fast, easy, and safe online payments. Look at these nice adjectives here: fast, easy, and safe online payments. Someone comes along and goes, hey, I want some fast, easy, and safe online payments. And they sign up, we start getting a few more users. Now, over time, the more users on that platform, the faster the bank transfers are going to be, faster we can approve mortgages, etc., etc. So over time, we're improving the product, the more people that are on it. Right? Think of if you have Revolut or N26, instant transfers, that was not a thing until 5 years ago. So the more people using it, the more value there is for me as an individual user and for you as an individual user. That's the basis. We also have long-term. If we're looking at the concept of an AI, this is very advanced, so don't worry about this too much. I'll touch upon it. You know, over the long term, we can be leveraging things like AI and our database to be improving that even more. So Alipay does, for example, mortgage approvals within, I think it's about 2 minutes, because they're tapping into all of your historic data on different products like Alibaba, Chinese version of Amazon, more or less, Alipay, the banking and finance branch. So we can create even more value over time, which makes it really hard for someone to come into this space, because not only do we have the network effect of the core product, but we're adding even more value with all of that data and some sort of algorithms driving a value add there, as an example. Again, this is advanced product strategy. Don't worry too much about it. Think about network effects in this example. Google search, another example. The more people searching, the better the searches get, the better the algorithm gets. And on the advertising side, the more valuable that ad space is, because it's getting even more specific. So what I'd like you to do is think of these 3 areas. In fact, ignore brand. Brand's not too useful here. So we've got, do we have economies of scale? Do we have brand? Do you think that's something valuable? And third, network effect. So how would you, if there is a network effect, how would you describe that? How does it create more value for our users and therefore make it hard for a competitor to dominate this market? Set a 2-minute timer. Focus mainly on network effects, but do look at these 2 if you think there's something worth mentioning as well. So to repeat that, how might Miro maintain dominance in the long term? Just 3 ideas here for you. There are other ideas you could add as well. Good. Somebody posted the perfect answer and then deleted it. I forgot the name. Anyway, I'll come back to it. So one thing I didn't mention today, and it is a relatively modern product strategy, like the last few years, is integrations. So Hubin again looked at what's his dominant strategy in the long term, integration with different work tools. So we're really embedding in your day-to-day work, right? It's hard to shift behavior, even if a better product comes along, because you're like, wow, I've got to now try and integrate this new tool. Challenge with that is that everybody's now doing it, and any new entrant is going to have some barrier. They're going to have to build many integrations, but once they do, then they can still create dominance and threaten Miro's position. Specifically, I'm just seeing if someone deleted it. But anyway, what is the network effect here? Think of your own use of it. So let's say, Justine, right? If we use Miro and put them here. Let's say you use it with your team. Like, what is the network effect going on there? How might we grow quite quickly in a way that other competitor potentially would find it hard to challenge? Think of the way that we use Miro. We talked about collaboration, right? What is the network effect there that make it hard for people to move to another product? Taking people on a journey, maybe. Think of it in simple terms. If I'm introducing Miro to my team, firstly, I'm adding all of those. We've got this viral growth mechanism going on. But secondly, and somebody posted this and deleted it, it's the more people on there, the more effective our collaboration. That's the assumption why we would use Miro, and therefore the more value we're getting. So the more that we're using it, the more time we spend in there, the better our collaboration, the more people we're bringing in, the more it becomes embedded. Arson, that was it. Embedded in your day-to-day work. So we've got that. We're really deeply embedded. We're constantly pulling people from our organization in. We're using it more and more in our organization. And then on top of that, we've got things like user-generated templates. Great, somebody mentioned that. We've got integrations again, so really just embedding ourselves in. So it's really hard to get rid of Miro, even if we wanted to at some point. And Sylvia, things like habit formation. So think of the hooked model, getting more and more investment. If we've got all of our files, our records within Miro, as we would have with something like Google Drive, for example. So, but the crux of it is Arsen's point: more users collaborate equals more impactful work. Quite simply, we're the inviting mechanism, the pulling in of people. So Miro gets more and more valuable the more people that we're inviting to it. And brand is, somebody mentioned a really good point. Brand is something, Shelin, I think it was, when customers think about collaboration, they should be immediately think of Miro. Think of the Hoover, right? We literally call it the Hoover when in fact it's a vacuum cleaner. That's the brand name, because when we think of cleaning or vacuuming, we think of Hoover, the brand. Googling for searching for information. Okay, so that's the kind of, very hard to do, but some companies have brand dominance like that as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if Miro had it in this case. Economies of scale, not so important in this case, but we do, obviously we have the scalability of technology that means we can 100x our users without any massive change in architecture or cost comparatively. Good. Let's now go into. So sorry, it's a good overview of product strategy, right? It's about, first step is, okay, well, what's the real problem we're trying to solve? Secondly, what's our unique position as we start out? And then how do we think about long-term dominance? Sometimes that's something we can use from day one, e.g. network effects for Miro, right? From day one, we're inviting people, we're collaborating. Slack's another good example. But there may be other things that we think about, or value adds, right? So again, using data in some way to maintain dominance over time. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Miro is working on something here. I mean, the templates slightly tie into that kind of idea of value add through user-generated content over time. Good. So I will share the Miro board now so that you can just browse around, and also obviously you have to save this link, come back to this over time whenever you're defining your own product strategy. Just don't edit these cards, obviously I'll be using them. So if you want to go check out the board, then feel free. Otherwise, I will continue to screen share so you can just follow along. What is the challenge for the next 10 minutes or so before we wrap up? Step one, what I'd like you to do is I'm presenting you with a problem, a surface level problem. What is that problem? It is that onboarding new employees is chaotic. What I'd like you to do is complete steps 1 and 2. So specifically, I'd like to do it in a bullet point format like this. Why is this problem a problem? And secondly, how might you solve it differently? So why is the problem a problem? So again, what's the thing? What's the thing under the surface? How might you solve it differently? I don't want you to answer all 4 of these. I'd like you to pick one type of product strategy. So are you questioning convention in some way? Are you using different technology? What's one thing you might focus on but do it much better? Are you already thinking about dominant long-term product strategy? So I'd like you to pick one thing. E.g., we focus on speed at Superhuman because of X, Y, Z. And just answering those 2 questions. So I'm going to set a 5-minute timer in this case. Let's 4 minutes, see how we get on. You've got this challenge. I've presented you with a surface level problem that onboarding new employees is chaotic. Why is that a problem? 1. Secondly, how might you solve it differently, i.e. differently to what is currently on the market? So see how you get along. 4-minute time, and then we'll review a few examples. You can write on Miro if you want. Just try to avoid using this exact board. You can keep it off the board if you'd like. You can also go in different directions with the problem. There's no one right answer here. A few cards just below for anybody that does want to use Miro. Just to recap, why is onboarding new employees chaotic a problem? Secondly, how might you solve that problem, that core problem, in a unique way? You've got these 4 prompts here to give you an idea. So if you're using Miro, just use numbers. So say 1 example. Good. I'm just going to ask for a volunteer to come on stage. I'll ask for a few people and see who wants to join. Sylvia, Anna, and who is this one? Got some ideas here. Okay, Sylvia, do you want to? Would anyone like to come on stage just to talk through an example? Okay, let's say Arsen, you happy to join? I say that and I've completely forgotten how to invite you on stage. Okay, if not, let's see if Ruben wants to join. Go through a few examples. Okay, let me try. Here we are. Arsen, awesome. If you just unmute yourself and if you can put the camera on. Don't worry.
Hello?
You're still in pajamas. How's it
Yeah,
going?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Good. Yeah, perfectly. So let's go through the example. So we got this problem. Onboarding new employees is chaotic. Why do you think this is a problem?
I tried to break it into multiple whys to get into the root cause of the actual problem. Just to see what.
Nice. So you've done 5
Yeah.
whys.
So I think the onboarding new employees could be a
Nice.
problem because new employees don't know what to do potentially, and it's all hypothetical, right? So why they don't know what to do is a problem because they get overwhelmed with tasks. I assume because they don't know what to do, they get so many things to do. Everything is new to them, and why it's a problem that they get overwhelmed because they forget everything. And why it's a problem for us because for us it would be because they can't create fast enough impact. Why it's a problem for us?
Good.
Because we
Excellent.
lost the money versus the time that we hire someone.
Good. And that's really interesting, right? From our perspective, yeah, we lose money and time because they're not having impact. And also, Sylvia mentioned this. This is a real problem with it. Much higher turnover. So people are more likely to leave. We're spending, 50% of their salary on recruiter fees potentially. We are spending, up to 60 hours just onboarding them. So yeah, lost money and time. And at this point, we might say, okay, well, why don't we focus on this like help, essentially creating impact?
Yeah.
How did you try and solve this in a unique way, Arsen? Let's go back to let's pick up this idea and go back to our board. In fact, any ideas?
I think that,
how might we question conventions? How do people currently do this? If we think of onboarding, why do you think that doesn't work very well?
Yeah, I'll have to think about it. So instead of spending only on that.
Okay,
But
no worries. It's you only got 4 minutes. Sort of. Anyone want to volunteer? So specifically about helping them create impact quickly. Alejandro, let's grab you on stage. Artem, feel free to stay on stage if you like as well. Let's get Alejandro up. See what his potential product strategy might be. Whilst doing, if anybody else, just so I've got a backup as well. Okay, awesome. We've got Alejandro up. Alejandro, good. So we've got this specific, let's take Arsen's problem. Right, the core of the problem, these new employees can't create fast enough impact. If you just unmute yourself for me. How did you approach this unique product strategy? Still on mute, by the way. Whilst doing that, Sammy, yeah, great contribution. So most orgs don't have a learning and development department. So they're just sort of winging it, essentially. Many companies just don't really do it, right? They just send a few emails. Christine, there will be a recording. Let's see if anybody else wants to come out. I think Alejandro is having problems with his microphone. If not, I will try and someone just post in the chat if you'd like to volunteer. Whilst doing that, let's have a look at any ideas people had. Okay, good. So we could look at this idea. I'm not sure whose it is. Onboarding plan and schedule for the first 3 months. Okay, let's see if Anna wants to join. We've got onboarding plan and schedule for first 3 months. Which bucket do we think that goes within? Questioning convention, different technology, Or how might we translate that into a more concrete product strategy? Sammy said, question convention. Why do you think that is? Anna, if you just unmute yourself, that'd be great. I'll come. Yeah, perfect. Great. Anna,
Like,
so which
hey
bucket do
Henry,
you think
hey
that would go
everyone,
in?
Alejandro here.
I'm not sure if it questions
Well, I think
convention, because
this
I
is a
think
very
some company already do
important
that.
part here, because
It's just that it might not
AI
do it
can
well.
learn of
I know
most of
my
what you
company
do. So
tried,
basically,
but
if you can
I really
actually make
struggled,
the
even if they
AI
offered me an
heat
onboarding
of the user
plan and people I
interaction,
have
you
to
can
meet,
automate
they
behaviors,
really
which in the
didn't
long run
consider
actually
giving me
you
the
make the
time
life
to
easier and
really
easier
go
on
through
the
all of
long
that.
run.
You know, they gave you the
And
plan, but then at the
getting
same
this
time you have to do all
data
the work.
is
So you're
definitely
sort of starting work on the
a
product,
plus
but
Yeah,
not
yeah.
really
other
focusing
tools
on
won't have in the
understanding
market.
it.
You've answered your own question there. So it does go within one of the 4 buckets. Which one do you think it might be? If you think back to what you said at the beginning there.
Is it a convention or do it better? Doing things much better. Yeah.
Better. Yeah. Be a bit more specific with your language. So when you say better, like what do we mean there? You could, take from these ideas. Is there any specific adjective you could think of, for example?
I think simplicity is one, because I think it tends to be overcrowded.
Definitely. I think so, yeah. I think simplicity would be one way to look at it, if not the core thing, in fact.
And I think
yeah, think about.
I just want to say, I think simplicity can lead to speed, as in it can make it faster.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's a really close relationship between these two, because it's not about speed in terms of loading times like with Superhuman. It's more about how quickly they actually understand.
Instead of you learning, working on your new job. I was actually saying product because I'm a product manager, but not everyone is. Sorry.
Yeah. I think most here are actually, so that's fine. Exactly. So how can you get up to speed quickly? Excellent. There's some other great ideas coming through now. So we've got Sammy said you could also question convention by having the hiring manager define the onboarding. Awesome. Yeah, super interesting. It's like, why is it? Why does HR define onboarding? It makes absolutely no sense. It should be the hiring manager when they create the job description.
And I think very few people do shadowing or
Excellent.
allow you to shadow the person, like, or your manager or another person that does a similar role.
Shadowing or coaching, being a core part. You could just do a coaching where it's like, it connects you up with, I know some companies try and do this manually. It's like, hey, Anna's just joined our company. Automatically, it's going to match you with 10 people.
Yeah, I get like millions of invites to all the stand-ups, to everything, all from the beginning. So it can be a bit too much.
Exactly. So some way of managing that, like the meeting of different people would be super interesting. Andrew's finally off the microphone. No worries. Just seeing if there's any other ideas. Azra, if Miro's not working, it may be slow internet. Don't worry, I'm sharing on my screen.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and Azra identified, we're doing one thing much better. I think, as we said, it's something around simplicity and speed. I think technology might be a part of that. Depends how we're not even at that stage in this case. I think, we've got 2 really strong ideas that we could start with. So I think we could do that. Let's talk about the final thing. What about, so imagine we've launched this, Anna's built this product, it's going really well. She's got this super simple onboarding platform launched out there. We've got users, we've got revenue coming in. What might we be able to do long-term to maintain or create dominance? Just gonna, this last exercise. Let's see, Anna, actually, I'll set a 1-minute time and see if anyone has ideas. You can think about this. Anna, I'll come back to you to see if you've got any ideas for this as well. Maybe look at this visual again to get some ideas. Think about these 3 ideas we have here as well. Think of the Miro example, bit of a hint. Anna, any ideas?
I'm thinking. I'm just thinking it's very hard.
Think of the nature. Think of the nature of the tool. So it's coming into an organization. might start, let's imagine it starting with like just our team. We've created some onboarding flow, and our Alejandro, our new employees, come along and he's gone through that flow.
I think definitely you need to learn from, because I don't think it will work for everyone what you're building. So it has to be specific to certain areas of the business, because what might work for a product manager in terms of onboarding might not work for somebody that works, I don't know, as an engineer or as a designer or.
Yeah. Okay. So there's two ways looking at it. We could either say, well, once we embed in the organization, there's an inherent like virality of that being used not just for our team but for other teams, or if we large organizations potentially onboarding somebody that's even moved team within the companies, we have that kind of network effect. But your counter argument, I think, is a valid one, which is say actually in many cases, it's very different flows that you need to set up there. So yeah, there's some network effect potentially limited. Alejandro mentioned AI. How would you see AI? I'm not saying that's wrong at all. Just talk me through why you think that might be the case. Nice. Yeah. And then particularly in this case, because we want to make it even more simple, even faster over time. So it makes huge amount of sense. We want to try and really improve the onboarding process. We've got very similar situations, right? So we would be able to learn quite effectively. If I'm onboarding a product manager in company A and company B, there's quite a lot of overlap. So I think we could use that quite effectively, as you said, and sort of feed that into our core value prop, which is this sort of simplicity, essentially. Good. Let's wrap up there. So, and in terms of today, again, we're not going into all the deep theory about product strategy, because you can go read books, watch talks, and come up with absolutely no idea about how we really experience product strategy. Just remember, it is crucial. It's all about value risk. If we are product managers, we have to really zero and obsess over that. And then we can use this kind of simple framework just to map out, what's the problem, what our unit value is, what kind of options, what are the cards we have in our deck that we could play. And then also thirdly, just having an eye on long-term success. The Slack example is a great one. Such a great company, but now they're really being threatened. Facebook, another one as well. So final thing before we wrap up, as I said, there's only so much we can do in an hour. If you want to join our 8-week program, really hands-on, interactive, where we really put this into practice in small groups of 10 people in our live sessions, then we do have about 7 places left on our January cohort of Prod MBA. So you can just click this link or go to prod.mba to check that out, get a bit more info there as well. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully it was helpful and actually actionable. I think it's a complete waste of time just sitting and watching talks. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully that really shifted your thinking around product strategy and also made you realize it's not that as complicated as you might think. So as I said, feel free to look at this. Final thing I forgot to mention, we are also launching a book in January. The product strategy is simple. So you can sign up to get a free copy. I'll post that link on here as well. Just gone live literally yesterday. And on that, you can sign up for a free copy if you refer a friend as well. That'll be coming out in January and really goes through the mechanics of crafting effective product strategy. So I'll also post that link down here for you. Thank you everybody for joining, and probably see you on the next session in a month or so.
Thank you.
There's a link right there for you. Thanks everyone. Have a great day as well. Have a good weekend. All right. Thanks everyone for participating as well. Alejandro, Anna, lots of A's today. Thank you. Bye bye.